baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything Jesus commanded them.
We at the American Family Association seek to aid the church in our Great Commission.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
For American Family News, I'm Chris Woodward. Former President Donald Trump is now President-elect Donald Trump after defeating Vice President Kamala Harris in the 2024 election. Talking about this on Fox's America's Newsroom program, RNC Chairman Michael Whatley said the president-elect was able to bring together many different voters under the same flag.
This is a fundamental realignment of American politics, and Donald Trump has built a common-sense coalition.
Vice President Kamala Harris is expected to concede later today, according to a campaign official. The Senate is going red after Republicans took back the majority during election night. Fox reporter Hillary Vaughn.
Republicans didn't just flip the Senate, they're on their way to building a multi-seat majority that would make them essentially invincible politically. So far, Republicans have flipped 3 seats held by Democrats. In Ohio, Bernie Moreno beating out incumbent Democrat Sherrod Brown. In Montana, Tim Sheehy defeated incumbent Democrat John Tester. And in West Virginia, Governor Jim Justice taking Democrat Joe Manchin's old seat. Just those victories give Senate Republicans a 52-seat majority, with races in other toss-up states like Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania all still too close to call.
The economy and immigration were top issues for voters, according to Fox News voter analysis. Los Angeles County District Attorney George Gascon has lost his bid for re-election. Here's Fox's Matt Murphy.
Nathan Hochman, a former federal prosecutor, defeated incumbent George Gascon to become the next Los Angeles County District Attorney. Hochman, a strong critic of Gascon's policies, pledged to reverse his predecessor's approach on day one, restore integrity to the DA's office, and rebuild law enforcement partnerships. Gascon's term was marked by controversial policies like zero bail and lenient sentencing for nonviolent crimes. It faced backlash from conservatives, law enforcement, and even his own staff, leading to a decline in support. Despite surviving 2 recall attempts, Gascon's re-election bid ultimately fell short.
More election results on AFN.net. A recent Wall Street Journal op-ed says the problem of anti-Semitism at Harvard began in the classroom. AFN's Bronson Woodruff has this story.
Since the October 7, 2023 terror attack in Israel, American higher education institutions, including Ivy Leagues like Columbia University and Harvard, to name a couple, have been plagued with students and others protesting against Israel and in favor of Palestine. The Wall Street Journal posted an op-ed titled "Harvard's Anti-Semitism Begins in the Classroom." In it, author Dara Horn says Harvard ignored a suggestion to review its courses and instruction to make sure its academic rigor is still held. Sophia Witt is vice president of Students Supporting Israel. She tells AFN she is not impressed with Harvard's action, or rather lack of action.
But I think that the neglect in reformation of these classes and of these clear bias perspectives almost shows the lack of integrity that I would say Ivy Leagues across the board are starting to adopt.
Witt said it's sad because of the position these Ivy League institutions like these hold.
These are kind of the universities that other schools look up to and look for as examples of, you know, the highest level of education. And it just seems that we don't have that integrity anymore.
Witt said she thinks terminology is important here. Using the term anti-Semitism too often waters down its impact. She thinks it's important to differentiate anti-Semitism from ignorance.
Just ask these students, like, which river and which sea, you know, when they're chanting from the river to the sea. They can't answer that. I don't think that they actually know what they're talking about.
I'm Bronson Woodruff.
In final news, Oklahoma State football coach Mike Gundy has apologized on social media for comments he made about his team's critics during a media session. Oklahoma State was one of the favorites to contend for the Big 12 title this season, but the Cowboys are alone in last place heading into Saturday's game at TCU. Gundy is in unfamiliar territory. The Cowboys have lost 6 in a row and must win out to avoid a losing season. Find more news on AFN.net. When you're there, be sure to subscribe to our free daily email news briefs. You can also like us on Facebook and follow us on X. Thanks for listening.
AFA Action takes attacks on the family seriously. The enemies of the family constantly employ new tactics to try to sneak past our radar. They know if we stand together, their evil plans will fail. Your gift to AFA Action allows us to stay vigilant against their onslaught. And if you give this month, you'll receive access to the Cultural Institute video When Your Faith is Illegal by Frank Harbor on AFA Stream as our thanks. You can make your gift today at afaaction.net.
Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildmon, President of the American Family Association.
Who's going to need a nap today? Everybody raise their hand.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
All right.
Sure.
Fred went to bed. I went to bed. I was probably about 2 in the morning. Fred, you stayed up to
let me introduce the
Oh,
panel.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
for people who are new, most people know who's talking here. But Today's Issues is the program. It's Wednesday, November the 6th. Finally, this day did arrive.
Yeah.
2024. Tim Wildman here with Ed Battagliano. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning, Tim.
Wesley Wildman.
Great morning.
Amen. Great morning.
For the conservatives.
Yes. Great morning. And Fred Jackson. Good morning, Fred.
Good to be back with you guys.
Now, you were saying about Fred?
Yeah. Would you stayed up? I listened to President Trump's speech this morning while I was getting ready. But you listened to it live, and it was
I went
about
home
3
last
in the
night.
morning or something.
Well, I guess adrenaline builds up after a while. I couldn't go right to bed.
Caffeine for me, but go ahead.
I just stayed up, and it was a long while before they got to that speech when President Trump, his whole family, and the rest of the entourage came out. So I stayed, and of course it was a 30-minute speech, roughly. And
he can't do anything less.
Yeah.
It's not in his DNA.
So it was about 3 o'clock Central when that was done.
Yeah.
And I knew I had to be in here by 6 this morning to do
Yeah.
aftermath stuff. So, yeah.
You know what? Again, we've talked about this before. Wesley, I don't know. I'm talking about Donald Trump, the human being. Okay, I'm not talking about his political views or anything like that. I'm talking about how a person that's 78 years old, he was giving speeches up until
3 in one day.
Yeah, traveling around the country, and I know he has his private jet and everything and people at his ever beckon, so that does help. But still, you're 78, and the energy it takes to do what he does.
I forget about that. I just take that with him because that's what he's always done. But when you pointed out the way you described it, it's more remarkable than he's been given credit for. Because I mean, on the other hand, I'm not saying you almost expect him maybe not to have the same type of medical condition Biden did, but you do expect as they get older, as someone gets older, you do expect for that to taper off some. As you saw with Biden, plus he increased with his mental capacity too. But even before his mental capacity, you could tell he was more fatigued. But that's not the case for Trump, and it's remarkable and something to be taken in.
I just want to know. I'd like to write a book on how he does
what's
it.
His vitamin regimen?
Vitamin regimen, his exercise plan, his how many Big Macs you should have in a week, those kinds of things.
What if Big Macs and no exercise are actually the things that make you stronger?
That's going to, you know what? A study will come out and prove that in about 10 years, probably.
After you've missed the opportunity of taking.
Well, Wesley doesn't remember this, and I barely do. But remember in the 70s, all the scare was cholesterol.
Oh yeah.
And I remember the egg, a fried egg, being on the front of Time magazine, basically saying this is killing you.
Yeah.
Okay. Then like 20 years later, they came back and said, hey, the egg is good for you.
Yes, it's a superfood.
It's a superfood. You remember this?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
They did that with other things like chocolate. Like I read a report the other day that showed that I say the other day, it's been over a year, but that said a good portion of chocolate could potentially prevent cancer. Okay, and I'm going,
Yeah,
wait a minute.
dark
I was
chocolate-
told
Dark chocolate.
Dark
especially.
chocolate, yeah.
Dark chocolate.
that's
well,
why in the medical. That's why in the nutrition field, I ignore all things, and I also say for all years, like it won't change my mind 10 years from now. I ignore all things, and I do all things in moderation.
Yeah.
So I do enjoy all things, but
I've said this on the air, so some of our listeners have heard me say this before, but I had not had real butter.
Yeah, it's a big difference.
Since I was a child. I don't remember, except for 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And here's why I say that, is when I was growing up, to Tim's point, butter was like eggs. It's killing you, cholesterol. So in my house, all I remember since I was a little kid was margarine, which I didn't like.
Yeah.
Margarine. So I would eat toast dry. I had toast dry up until about 2 years ago.
No.
Yes, absolutely. My wife made a couple pieces of toast. You want a couple pieces of toast? Yes. And she gave it to me with butter. And I ate it, and I said to her, I said, "This is amazing." I had not had actual butter.
This is amazing.
Yeah.
Like she cooked the butter.
Yeah.
Are you telling me you went 5 decades?
Yes.
Without knowing what butter tasted like on toast?
That is absolutely true.
You have been deprived.
Yes, and I'm angry about it.
Well, you can't get those years back. You can't.
You know, the other thing too is
Hey guys, there was a presidential election last
Yeah,
night.
we should talk about that. Go ahead.
I think we
whole milk.
Yes.
Everything was skim milk. Gotta have skim milk.
Gotta have skim milk, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, we did start off talking about Trump as a force
Yeah,
of
but
nature.
you can tell the four of us didn't go to bed till 2 and 3 in the morning because we are delirious now, not even knowing what we're talking about.
But you're the only one that I've heard point that out the way that you have. If any
About Trump's energy, stamina, it's just remarkable. I don't know how he does it. Just his DNA, his makeup. All right, so Fred, what time was President Trump declared the 47th president of the United States?
At 12:28.
President-elect.
Central Time last night. I think it was just moments before we went off the air.
It was.
We finally got that count.
Tim, we were trying to decide how long we were going to stay. And we were close to midnight, and Tim said, "I'll tell you what, we'll go to 12:30."
Right.
Then that's when.
However, here we are, 10 hours later, and I'm looking at Fox. We're still with Trump sitting at 277. All right, 270 Electoral College.
Yeah.
To win 277, and here's the reason why, guys. Michigan. 98.22% of the votes have been reported. Trump is up by 91,000, but they're not calling that yet for Trump, Michigan. Likewise, Nevada.
It doesn't matter.
No.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter in the sense that Trump's already got the numbers.
This would just add.
Yeah.
But here's the other thing. We talked about this last night. Arizona. Polls have been closed, for 20 hours now? They're still only reporting 60% of the vote count.
Yeah. That's
what
crazy.
is going on in Arizona? But Trump is ahead there as well.
Well, they suffer from heat exhaustion in Arizona, so you can't blame them.
Well, you were kind of expecting something like that in I say expecting. You were kind of looking out for something like that in Pennsylvania, but Pennsylvania got theirs in and done.
Yeah.
All right, so here's what Trump did last night that closed the deal, to borrow from, isn't that what language he likes?
Oh, yeah.
Close
Part of the deal.
Part of the deal. He, the battleground states of Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, Trump swept those.
Yep.
That basically did it for him. And
he's likely going to sweep Michigan,
yes,
Arizona, and Nevada.
And Nevada. It's going to be it's a
bloodbath.
Blowout. Basically, he won the popular vote, which is astounding, absolutely amazing.
Yep.
That he won the to me it is the popular vote, because you said, Wesley, the Republican hadn't won the popular vote since when?
Since George Bush Sr.
Yeah. Oh, since
really?
George Bush Sr.?
Senior, yep. It wasn't, George Bush Sr., I believe, was the last one to win it. But you and I were talking about this morning, I'm not surprised at all. Like, there was nothing, I wasn't even on pins and needles yesterday. I was confident Trump was going to win, and, save 5 minutes of why I felt that way. However, in my confidence for 6 months that he was going to win, I never would have debated or even had any inclination that he would have won the popular vote. That was never on.
Right.
I would have said he is going to win, no problem. That's my opinion. But the popular vote, he's going to lose by 2%. Okay?
Well,
but he won by 3.5 or 4%. Well,
yeah,
there's still some coming in, but
Right.
he's going to end up winning the popular vote by 3.5 or 4%, which is almost
About
5 million.
Yeah, about 5 million.
Let that just sink in for a second. Trump winning the popular vote,
right?
As bad as they make him out to be, he's about to win the popular vote.
Yeah.
And let me just toss this in. I'm not trying to over spiritualize things. It seems like God's hand was on this whole process.
Yes.
And God, I think God is giving us a reprieve. But here's two things to consider about the election. Okay, in terms of ratcheting down the possibility of violence and the country tearing itself apart. If this had been wound up being 271 electoral votes to 269, I think you could have had trouble in terms of people launching lawsuits and violence in the streets. But it looks like Trump is going to win by a pretty significant margin.
Over 300.
Yeah. So maybe 312, 315 to 226, almost 100 electoral votes. That kind of pops that bubble in terms of potential for violence, but also the fact that he's going to wind up winning the popular vote.
Yes.
That is always stuck in the craw of the left.
Yep.
That we need to get rid of the Electoral College. This is a corrupt system. Well,
we need popular vote.
He won the popular vote too. So to me, those two things are going to probably wind up being part of God's mercy on our country.
Yeah. In his speech last night, which was around 2:30 in the morning, he tried to strike a bit of a tone, a reaching out tone, that it was time for the country to heal. Here's a little bit of his speech, cut number 6.
This was a movement like nobody's ever seen before. And frankly, this was, I believe, the greatest political movement of all time. There's never been anything like this in this country, and maybe beyond. And now it's going to reach a new level of importance because we're going to help our country heal. We're going to help our country heal. We have a country that needs help, and it needs help very badly.
Does he mean that?
I think so. I think so. By the way, let me just say, I was talking.
I wouldn't have that attitude, but go ahead.
Well, I think he needs to hit when he gets inaugurated in January. Okay, he does need to hit the ground running in terms of fixing things. A lot of people need to be fired. Okay,
Amen, brother.
I'm not talking about that kind of thing.
Vivek Ramaswamy, put him in charge.
Yes.
Tell him, clean house.
Clean
That's what I would
house.
say. You got my blessings. Go do it. Go all over the town.
And we do have some sound when
pay
we
your gas
talk
money.
about RFK Jr. and stuff like that. But I do like the emphasis from the speech last night on reaching out and saying, listen, we do need to heal. So I said this last night on the show. I'm not talking about firing people. All that stuff needs to happen. Breaking up the power structure in D.C. if he can pull that off. But I
closing
don't
the border. I mean,
closing the border, all those kinds of things. But I do think I don't think he needs to waste his 2 years where he's got the Senate and the House. He does not have to waste those 2 years going after his political enemies in terms.
Well, they're dead. He beat them last night.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying in turn, like.
Oh, you mean like a vengeance tour?
Yes, a vengeance tour, turning the Justice Department loose on his enemies. I don't think he needs to waste his time doing that. He needs to fix things as much as he can in those 2 years to keep the House and the Senate.
I agree. Let me just make personality. I'm not great at this, but a personality observation on Trump is that he is, the art of the deal guy. The businessman, the wheeler dealer part of him. he says things sometimes that he doesn't mean, but he does it for a reason. I don't agree with that, the way he approaches that sometimes, because he'll call people names. You call Nikki Haley a bird brain,
right?
For 6 months, a woman running who worked for you,
call
her stupid. I don't agree with doing that, but he does that to diminish her chances to beat him.
Right.
Okay? Because that's what his objective is to put her in her place and beat her down.
Yeah.
That's why he calls him Ron DeSanctimonious.
Right.
Because he wanted to put the governor of Florida in his place and beat him down.
Right.
Okay. Now, that's the way he operates as a human being.
Right.
So I think he's also the type of person that can call you a name and then tomorrow play golf with you.
I absolutely agree.
Because he doesn't really mean it in the sense that it's personal, even though it sounds personal. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely does. And we've said this.
Win.
We've said this a bunch of times. He is a guy who worked in, a money-making machine, who worked in New York City. You're dealing with hardcore.
He was the king of Manhattan, basically. Yeah.
Union guys, and these are no cent, no.
Right.
Take no prisoners kind of, and so this is the way he's operated. And listen, I grew up in New England. It's probably not as bad as in New York City, but that's the way you deal with your opponents in a very aggressive manner, because he has to get something done, and he can't have the tower he's building in Manhattan. He can't have that held up by a union, boss who's demanding X, Y, or Z. So he goes after that person, but it's not personal. It's just, you're in my way, and afterwards I'll buy your lunch.
Right. So big win for this is bigger than just Donald Trump's resurgence, I guess you could say. Somebody called it the greatest political comeback in American history. I would have to agree. In terms of my lifetime, I can't remember anything quite like this. I personally thought Trump was dead in the water.
Yeah.
After January 6th, I thought he might as well retire.
You were completely shocked when he said he was running again. You said this is a waste of time. This is all this is going to do is divide the party. Like you were.
Yes, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
I thought I was wrong.
Yeah.
In the end, in the final analysis, I was wrong because I didn't realize the reservoir of.
But everything had to have happened. I mean, it was not a straight path forward for him too. I mean, a lot of people felt the same way you felt.
Yes, Donald Trump should agree to appear on the box of Lucky Charms as the new mascot.
Yeah,
because the man has 9 lives. I've never seen anything quite like it. Some people say, well, that's divine intervention, and maybe it is. Yeah. I don't know.
Well, you said last night, it's absolutely true. He was tied with Ron DeSantis.
Yes.
When the primary season
in
opened,
March of 2 years ago.
Yeah. And then you said I got 2 words to say who resurrected Donald Trump's chances. Alvin Bragg.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So most Republicans,
the Manhattan DA,
the Manhattan district attorney who charged Trump. So most Republicans were split in terms of who they wanted to see make it as the nominee for the
because
party.
They thought, like I did, his chances of winning were 0.
Yep.
But here we are.
Yep.
Yes.
Well, thanks to Alvin Bragg.
Well, I think the way Trump responded to all of those charges in various states, Trump came out fighting, and people began to say that's what the country needs.
Yeah,
is a fighter. They like Ron DeSantis, that's for sure, but they saw a fight in him. And then, of course, what happened in Butler? The assassination attempt. He comes up fighting. He's got blood on him.
Right.
The fist is
right out of a movie.
It was.
Well, that also showed
exactly right.
You can't practice that. You can't even recreate that in your mind. Like, what am I going to do if this happens? That was the most authentic and genuine response to that moment that you can't. That you, like I said, you can't recreate. And for anybody that was on the fence or close, I think that was one more moment that pushed them over.
And that was something that President Trump alluded to last night as far as God sparing his life. Cut number 3.
And I said that many people have told me that God spared my life for a reason. And that reason was to save our country and to restore America to greatness And now we are going to fulfill that mission together. We're going to fulfill that mission.
Well, congratulations to Donald J. Trump, the 47th President of the United States. He will be inaugurated in January. Hopefully it won't be January 6th, but anyway. Or maybe that's a good thing. But anyway, he will be inaugurated. There's so much to talk about here.
And we're going to talk about it.
We're going to talk about it. But this was, by the way, does anybody know, as of this moment, has Vice President Harris called to congratulate?
No,
and concede?
No.
She has not.
I don't say to congratulate, but at least to concede. She has not?
No, and she didn't last night, and she has not so far this morning, which is very unusual. It's very unusual. Now, she's going to address, right, her own party. She's going to make her concession speech tonight at 6 p.m., which is late. That's late for making a concession speech, but usually you call your opponent well in advance.
She may do that today.
Yeah.
I would expect her to do that today, but she just I don't know. I don't like calling anybody terrible, but she was a terrible candidate.
Yes.
I mean, we all know that.
Really bad.
Huh?
And she was frankly a terrible vice president. She didn't do anything, even when she was given authority to do something.
She got the job because she was a woman of color. And that's why Joe Biden picked her. And that's basically what he said, which only proves you don't pick people based on their race, gender, ethnicity,
or height,
or depth,
or hair,
or any other thing.
Any other thing. You pick people to run for. Now, it doesn't. I'm not saying it's wrong to make those things a consideration if, in fact,
you have two people
you are
qualified first.
Yes, you have to be qualified.
Yes.
But and maybe you do want to pick somebody for their ethnicity or as part of the equation.
Sure.
Okay. But the way the Democrats have been doing with this DEI, is that what you call it?
Right.
Yep.
Diversity, is that you got to check the boxes.
Yeah.
You know, okay.
First.
We need a.
First. You do it first.
Yeah, you do it first. Yes, the qualifications are.
Maybe down the list.
And so the Democrats are reaping what they sowed. Wesley?
Oh yeah, they're reaping what they've sowed, and you're. This is one more, I guess, nail in the coffin. I don't know about nail in the coffins. That's almost like it's permanent done. But this is one more blow to the DEI and the wokeism that's taking place.
It's a big
because
blow.
we've seen it over the last 3 to 4 years. Wokeism is failing on college campuses. It's also failing in the workforce. The general
corporate America is becoming very wary of it.
But both of those, and now this has happened, that she has failed. This is one more blow that this is not working. That's why with all that's going on at the border and inflation and the other problems, I do want to point out, and I have in the past, that our movement is winning at least heavily in one area, and that's on this issue of wokeism and transgenderism, men and women's sports. Those issues we're winning on, and again, I'm looking at the popular vote here, and now that 51% of the popular vote is going to Donald Trump. That's huge.
Yeah. Another thing, I know we got to take a break over here. We got some sound clips to play, but I was reading this morning several commentators saying, the American people, the majority now, we can say honestly, last night, because the Republicans cleaned up in the Senate, it was embarrassing for the Democrats. But the majority of American people are tired of being called Nazis.
Right.
They're tired of being
garbage.
Deplorables.
Deplorables.
The list
goes on.
Tired of being called racist. Tired of being called homophobes. and they had an opportunity last night to speak to the progressive movement and say, how you like them apples?
Yeah, sure.
And that's what happened. We'll be back momentarily. Stay with us.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildmon.
In the book of Matthew, 6th chapter, there's some words that go like this that our Lord spoke. Therefore do not be anxious about tomorrow, for tomorrow will be anxious for itself. Let the day's own trouble be sufficient for the day. Abraham Lincoln and some of his friends were once forced to do some traveling during a very rainy season. They'd crossed many small streams, and the water was high and fast in all of them. After a long day of facing streams that nearly washed them away, they came to a lodge where they spent the night. Sitting around the fire that night, the men were talking about how high the streams were and how fast the water was flowing. Then someone brought up the fact that the very next day the group would be forced to cross Fox River. Now, Fox River was very difficult to cross even when the water was low. And if it was up in comparison to the other streams, it'd be nearly impossible to cross. As they sat around and talked, many expressed the thought that Fox River would be uncrossable. Since they had a date to keep, it was important to the traveling group that they not be delayed on their journey. For some time that night, the group sat around discussing the river and the awful possibilities that would be open to them when it came time to cross it. Following some discussion of the river, someone noticed that there was a Methodist preacher spending the night in the lodge who traveled the territory quite often, who was very familiar with Fox River. One of the group asked the preacher about Fox River and how he managed to cope with it when the water was high. Preacher, you've been listening to us talk about Fox River. Do you have any special way of getting across that river? Any rules to follow that might help us? A member of the group asked. Well, now that you ask, replied the preacher, I do have one fixed rule about the river. I've crossed it many times, and I know it's a mighty problem to get across sometimes, but I've solved the problem with just one rule. What's your secret, preacher? Have you got a special place to cross? Nope, haven't got a special place to cross. I always cross it where everyone else crosses it, he says. Then you must have a float put back nearby to help you cross it, one of the group stated. Nope, haven't got a float put back. Just never did have the time to build one for the occasion and didn't have the money to buy one, said the preacher. But you said you had a rule about crossing that river, one of the Lincoln group blurted out. If you haven't got a special place to cross or a float to cross on, then tell us what your rule about crossing the river is. Well, sir, said the preacher, I've crossed Fox River many times, but I've learned never to cross it till I reach it. And with that, the preacher rolled over and went to sleep. You know, it's a pretty good rule to follow.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildmon, a production of the American Family Association.
One thing I ask from the Lord, this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple. Psalm 27:4.
American Family Radio. This is Today's Issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of Today's Issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of Today's Issues.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the radio program Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Tim Wildmon with Ed Vitagliano, Wesley Wildmon, and Fred Jackson. We're talking about what happened yesterday, last night. Donald Trump won the presidency, beating Kamala Harris handily in the Electoral College and the popular vote. So he will be the 47th president of the United States in January. In the meantime, we don't have a president. Basically don't have a vice president. So there's you walk up to the cockpit of the plane, there ain't no pilots, people. And that,
you're not exaggerating either.
Huh? That's
reality.
Truth. That's the truth, because Biden's checked out.
Now, we don't want to tell our enemies that that's the case.
Well, they know it.
Oh, yeah, okay.
They know it. You don't even have to tap our phone lines
to find that out.
To find that out.
That's a good
Biden's checked out, and you know what's going to and now what? Harris doesn't care. She's gone too.
Right.
So there's no interest in leading or being responsible.
Yeah.
She's never been known to be that way anyway.
She's done politically.
I think so.
I mean, she's not going to have a comeback. She's not. I don't think she can run for office again.
No,
she can't lecture. She can't go on the lecture circuit. I mean, maybe if she had a good speechwriter, she could pull that off. But politically,
she could probably go on the Food Channel and have a show called Making Salads with Kamala.
Making salads, I like that.
Making Salads with Kamala, right here on the Food Channel.
She went on a couple of food channels with some comedians and other people. That's funny you mentioned that. Did you know about that?
She did.
Well, she was on Saturday SNL. By the way, we didn't talk about that last night. NBC's in trouble over that.
Yeah,
Did you guys talk about it
the other day?
All right.
Yeah, that is having her on Kamala Harris on Saturday night prior to the Tuesday election is an unfair. You're not supposed to do that as a national broadcaster,
right?
Without giving Trump the opportunity to be on as well. And others who were running,
which he would not have the opportunity because there were no more Saturdays before the election.
Hey, that's a good quick point to make. You know, I mentioned that in the event that Donald Trump and the Republicans pull this out, they won with one hand behind their back, and they did.
Yeah,
how do you mean that?
That the entire media gauntlet was in opposition to Trump in all ways. In fact,
the mainstream media.
Yeah, you know what? I don't think they have as much sway as they used to have.
I don't either.
They don't, because of the advent of the podcaster and the internet and everything.
That's right.
The mainstream, what we call the mainstream media, yes, they have their share of eyeballs, but they're not the only game in town anymore. You look at, for example, the Fox News channel has been the leading television news cable channel for years now, 25 years. And so
that's what CNN's
and
contract
they're basically conservative.
Airports.
So I just think, yes, the mainstream media has been liberal. Listen, this time the Washington Post
and the LA Times
didn't endorse a candidate because they saw the writing on the wall, you know.
Look, well, I just throw this one thing in,
too.
But Elon Musk, he buys Twitter, and now X is a game changer in terms of getting news out.
Yep.
What's the effect on the election that X had, and thus Elon Musk, in terms of having an outlet that's not controlled by the CNNs and MSNBC?
Listen, Elon Musk put a lot on the line. Now, not his personal wealth. I mean, he's got enough money to live 1,000 lifetimes comfortably. But I'm talking about, so he really didn't have to get involved. But I think Elon Musk realized what the worldview and political views were so drastically different between Trump and Harris, Democrats and Republicans. He said, I've got to speak out on this. I've got to talk about this because we're talking about basically Marxism versus capitalism.
Yeah.
From a financial, economic, point of view. All right, Abe Hamilton joins us right now. Abraham Hamilton III, who's host of the Hamilton Corner each afternoon, 5 to 6 o'clock, right here on the American Family Radio Network. Hey, Abe, how you doing?
Good morning, guys. I'm doing very, very well. Though I'm sleepy, I'm doing very well. God is merciful to us.
Amen.
Yes. Why? You mean God wanted Trump to win?
Well, I believe God has given our country a reprieve, to give us a break from the hellscape, frankly, and I don't mean that in a pejorative sense, that a Harris administration would have been for our country across the board.
I agree.
You mentioned Elon Musk, and he described it as the woke mind virus. Some people don't recognize this. He has a combination of his business interest, but he also shared in an interview with Jordan Peterson how his own son was ensnared by the transgender ideology, and he said he's lost his son forever. And that was one of the things that motivated him to get involved.
And that's what the Democrats have been pushing.
Yeah.
And this is a repudiation, unlike anything I've seen in a long time, of the what I call the secular progressive movement in America. Now, it doesn't mean they're
going away, but
they're not going away, and they're not completely dead, I guess. But they're
not dead, but the American people is repudiating that. For a lot of people, it was too far. It's too far that the American people spoke very loudly when you have the combination of, the Electoral College vote, while there's still states counting the national popular vote. And yet you have people on crazy outlets, MSNBC and others, they're talking about misogyny and racism and all that. That's like, you guys have no ability to be objective and introspective. The fact is, this was a cultural repudiation of your whacked out ideology. That is what it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you had MSNBC analysts calling what happened in Florida in terms of the defeat of the pro-abortion side on Amendment 4, and saying that that's evidence of fascism. What's her name?
Yeah. Joy Reid.
Joy Reid, saying that's evidence of fascism.
I know they're
that's absurd. That's absurd. And like Wesley made the point, these people have lost their sway because one of the major things that I thought was a pretty genius stroke by the Trump campaign is that he was going on these long form interviews. Like the interview Trump had with Elon Musk on Twitter got over 1 billion views. 1 billion people tuned in. These long form interviews, they got to hear. Yeah, Joe Rogan, and people got to hear Trump. They got to hear J.D. Vance in long form. And when they listen to him, it's like, this doesn't sound like fascism to me. This doesn't sound like Hitler to me. This doesn't sound like this to me. So then when you have Joy Reid, who will say the democratic participation of Floridians to decide that they don't want to amend their constitution, having the opportunity to do so, and for her to say that's evidence of fascism, that's just absurd.
Right.
It's not just a bad take.
I wouldn't be surprised if MSNBC, I mean, they may get a new audience, be re-energized because they're opposing the fascism of Trump and the Republicans, but they also may just go out of business too. It wouldn't surprise me at all because they don't have anything to offer, really. All right, let's talk. I want to talk for just a minute. What the Senate means to President Trump in terms of his agenda, namely the judges, the Supreme Court justices. It's been rumored for a long time that, I don't know if even it's a rumor, maybe Clarence Thomas has said, I want to retire.
Yeah.
Samuel Alito, the two stalwart conservatives on the Supreme Court. Trump can appoint anybody he wants to now, right? And there's no resistance.
Now, you're absolutely right. And as we're speaking, the Republicans have a majority in the Senate with 52 seats, and there's still states counting.
It may be 53, 54. Who knows?
It could, Tim, in some instances be as much as 56, potentially. If Nevada goes to Brown, if Michigan goes to Mike Rogers, if Pennsylvania goes to McCormick, and if Wisconsin goes to Hovde, you're at 56. That is
poor Chuck Schumer. Poor fella. He just
I don't
so
feel
likable.
bad for Chuck. Huh? Chucky Duck Quack Quack. Remember, he wanted to cause the Supreme Court to reap the whirlwind. Remember that?
Yes,
oh yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. You better watch your back, Gorsuch and Kavanaugh.
Yes, by name.
Yeah,
yes.
He called them out like threatening violence against you. But now
he did it in a peaceful way. But,
yeah,
mostly
peaceful. Yeah.
But I think the overall the secular progressive movement, they're laying on the mat now. This is Muhammad Ali knocking down somebody, and they're laying on the mat, huh?
Sonny Liston, and he's standing over him with the red glove waving.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, interesting. So the Republicans take the House, the Senate. The House, by the way, where does that stand, Fred?
Right now, I think it's
198 to 178 in favor of the Republicans in terms of races called. So it's not decided. But although I think as of last night,
all you need is a 1-vote majority to control all the committees.
4 had been flipped in favor of Republicans. 3 had been flipped in favor of Democrats, and Republicans are up 1 seat, according to Fox, up at this point.
Yeah. Do you see anybody, Abe, right now on the Democrat side that will pick up the pieces and try to give them leadership where they can gain back some
no, I don't, and I'll tell you why. It's not because of a lack of youth and a lack of people, but it's the ideology. Like, for so long, the Democrats have purged anyone that had any type of centrist leaning whatsoever. And what we're seeing is that the country is repudiating this radical ideology. The Democrat standard for their primary processes, for example, for the presidency, you have to be pro-trans everything. You have to be abortion up until the 40th week of gestation, even after the fact. You have to be pro-everything, transgender surgeries on minors.
Against Israel?
Against Israel. You have to be against they call it fossil fuels. It's just the energy sector that has lifted the largest amount of people in the history of the world out of poverty through what they call fossil fuels. You have to be against American independence on the energy front. You have to be against all of that in order to get any traction in the Democrat Party, and that's what they've curated over the last 20 years.
And so there's no backing out of that for the
you
for the
can't
Democrats.
just reverse course. You have to have an entire new slate of folks. And so the question is whether or not their own party, their own base will accept that. You had the Harris campaign afraid to come flat out and say Hamas is terrorists. Yes. We don't support people chopping off children's heads and murdering grandma coming out of her home. But they couldn't say that because of what they've created in their party. And so it's going to require them to be objective and introspective and have a reconsideration as to what should be the core of what they believe. And that's going to take some time. And I'm not sure their base will allow it to happen.
Well, I haven't considered this until just this conversation. Abe, do you think there could potentially be a split within the Democratic Party?
Yes.
I
do.
Now that you're thinking about this now.
But you can't win anything if you start splitting up.
No, hold on. I don't mean okay.
And I'm not disagreeing. There won't be. I'm just telling you.
And I don't
ramifications.
I don't mean. Oh yes, but I don't mean Democrats Party split up in the sense that there becomes
two different
parties. I'm saying they kick out. That's another way I'm saying. Does that make sense?
Like a church split.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, what I think you're going to see is you're going to see some people in the Democrat Party that are going to be willing to say, yeah, mutilating kids, that's too far. Then you're going to have some that say, no, that's not far enough.
Yeah,
and so you're going to have that tension within the Democrat Party. And historically, they've been willing to just wink and nod. Let's go on, let's try to win elections. But in light of what the country is saying, when you have in blue states that Trump did not win, but you have blue states where Trump comes within 5 points in New Jersey of a Democrat presidential candidate, when you have the Bronx and certain boroughs in New York that Trump is within 5 points, that's a wake-up call for them in states that are traditionally strongholds. And then you have this whole description of the blue wall where the whole wall is red.
Yeah.
All right, what happens to the remaining lawsuits that Trump's dealing with? The federal case having to do with January 6th in D.C., and then you got the two cases, one in New York, one in Georgia. That's all that's left, right? What's going to happen there?
The federal case is practically over. The federal case is practically over, and this is why. Because he is the 47th president elect currently, whatever the stage of litigation that transpires on Inauguration Day, he, as a commander-in-chief and head of the Department of Justice, will immediately cause that case to be dismissed.
Okay.
The federal case is practically over. The remaining things are the Georgia case and the sentencing in New York with Alvin Bragg's prosecution. And frankly, the allegations in that case, and I said this even before the election, don't bear any carceral sentence. If the Biden administration is committed to wanting healing, he should come out. He should come out immediately and say, listen, all of this prosecution's lawfare stuff, this needs to stop. He needs to take the lead, and I'm not expecting him to do so, but I'm saying if there is a genuine interest.
Go ahead, and then I got a comment about what he's talking about.
Abe,
if there's a genuine interest in moving forward, then he needs to come out and say this stuff needs to be tossed out. And he needs to preemptively pardon Trump in order to do so.
Abe, the judge in New York is crazy. He is wacky crazy. Would he be crazy enough to go ahead with the sentencing now?
You're asking Abe?
How do you predict crazy?
You're asking me.
I'm asking Abe. Because this judge has no credibility whatsoever. None.
He ain't gonna do that. Can I use the word "ain't" right there? I've used it once already.
Yeah, you can.
Go on.
Yeah.
All right. Let me just tell you to reiterate kind of what Abe is saying. I didn't let Abe answer the question. Abe, you want to answer the question, or do you have an answer?
Whatever you want to do, I can answer, or I can.
I'd like to hear the answer. What's your expectation?
Ed hears me enough, so go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, as crazy as he is, and I agree that he is crazy, that Judge Mershon is crazy, but I didn't expect him to render a carceral sentence in the first place because it's so beyond the scope of any criminal prosecution. You have, and this is the truth, you have cases, we have sexual assault cases that because of the facts of the case, that the convicted person ends up getting a probation. So to take this circumstance and to give President Trump any type of carceral sentence would be absurd. And here's the other thing. Judge Merchan is an elected official. Do you think he's not looking at the election results in his neck of the woods? And he recognizes, oh, snap, Trump is not as unpopular as we thought he was, that you have a significant percentage of people in the place where I need to be reelected that are in favor of Trump. I think he's going to look at these election results and turn in a different direction. Now, how far, I'm not sure, but I don't think he's crazy enough to jeopardize his own reelection chances. And so I think that above anything else is going to be impactful in his decision whether or not to proceed with sentencing or what type of sentencing and things of that nature would follow. But I think in the interest of the state of the country and in the interest of justice, the entire thing should be thrown out.
I tried to find this clip, couldn't find it, but last night I was watching Fox News, and Trey Gowdy was on there, the former House member from South Carolina, and he is a district attorney or something in his background. Anyway, he made a very good point along the lines of what Abe's saying. He said what Biden should do today, or ASAP, for the sake of our country, Biden should preemptively pardon, is that what you call it, or dismiss the federal case against Trump in D.C., the January 6th case. Florida case was dismissed 3 months ago or 5 months, whenever it was, when the judge said special prosecutor's unconstitutional. But anyway, so Biden should do that. And Trey Gowdy said he can also pardon Hunter Biden if he wants to. So you pardon Hunter Biden, you dismiss or pardon Trump on the federal case. You can't pardon somebody who's not convicted. So I don't know how I'm trying to say that. I'm talking about the federal case against Trump in D.C. Just dismiss it. Just say federal government is. I've instructed the Justice Department to drop the case.
Yeah.
Okay. However you want to say it, and that way, and then put pressure. He said, as a Democrat leader, to such that he is Biden Democrat leader, to have Georgia and New York drop the cases. That way we can all move on.
Yeah.
The country can move on, and we can quit prosecuting our political enemies. Which would be good for the country. That's what Trey Gowdy said, and he said it well, and I couldn't agree with him.
What do you think about that?
I think that's right. I mean, and the way he can do it is simply say the American people have spoken, and it's time for us to listen. We've had these previous years of rancor, elevated rhetoric, and when I came into office, I promised to be, a uniter, reconciler, and all of that, and I meant that. And so, in the last stages of my presidency, I want to do my best to put our nation in a position better than it was when I inherited, whatever you want to say on that front, and to accomplish that, these are steps that must be taken.
Then he can ask, is that chocolate or strawberry?
Yeah. And then he can say, take that, Barack.
Yeah, I know.
Nancy.
That's what I was thinking. There's no downside for Biden to do
There's no
exactly
downside.
what we said.
In fact, if he does that, he would actually elevate his state beyond what it's ever been since he's been in the Oval Office.
There's no downside
between naps, if you can wake him up.
Abe, let me toss this out to you. With Election Day, between Election Day and inauguration, there's what, 2 months, 2.5 months, something like that. What do you expect? Because Biden-Harris is still a thing, all right? They still technically have authority. What do you expect is going to happen over the next, 2.5 months? Do you think they're going to try to break stuff so that Trump comes in? You remember with the Clinton administration when they left?
Hold on,
let
me interrupt you. You mean break stuff worse? Because
yes.
they have thoroughly broken stuff.
Break stuff worse so that when on day one of the Trump administration, he's got all kinds of problems to do. And kind of a petty thing, when the Clinton administration left office for George Bush, they did damage. I'm not talking about this kind of thing, but this is the kind of mentality. Remember, they messed with the keyboards, did stuff to the computers. But I'm talking about the economy or ramming through regulations and doing things to kind of have the last say and make things difficult for Trump on day one. What do you expect is going to happen over the next 2.5 months?
It's unfortunate, but it's not beyond the calculus that there would be some people that would do those types of things. And now I don't think Joe Biden would do it himself. I don't think Kamala Harris would do it herself. But I do think there's some people that are sufficiently vindictive within their administration. Because let's be frank, Joe Biden is not making any decisions now anyway. Neither is Kamala Harris. They're not controlling anything. So there are people in their administration that I think that would be vindictive enough to try those kinds of things.
It's the bureaucracy. It's the bureaucracy and the deep state, so to speak, that's in control for the next 2 months. There's no, and you know what? I don't know. I don't know what to worry about exactly, specifically, like you're talking about. But if you have these people who know Trump's coming in with a new attitude, and he's going to hire people who are going to fire people, you know what I'm saying? And they're going to be looking for people that have been against, I don't know how to say this. Anyway, they're going to want to hire people that agree with their ideology, like anybody has a right to, right? And so if you've got people who know that's coming and they still have the keys to the car right now, I mean, some funny things could happen.
Right.
I mean, that's not.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think that's one perspective, but also I think that's one potentiality. And I also think there are going to be some who are going to be trying to save their own skin and looking to try to get their next gig lined up as well. So
that's a good thing.
I would invite that. And you asked the question. I never answered it about the Senate's makeup concerning its impact on judges.
Yeah, go ahead.
Simply put, Justice Samuel Alito and Justice Clarence Thomas, they are older. They're in the upper years. Justice Thomas has stated directly he was considering retiring. I don't think they're going to repeat what Ruth Bader Ginsburg did. She held on and stayed in her position as a justice through the Obama years into the Trump years and unfortunately passed away. Unfortunately for her and the Democrat Party, passed away in office, which led to President Trump's opportunity to replace her. I don't think Justice Alito and Justice Thomas will repeat that, which highlights why the work we've been doing through AFE Action is so important, helping to position the Trump campaign with godly, constitutionalist, biblical worldview-centered potential jurists who could replace Justices Thomas and Alito and not allow for anybody else to replace them to maintain the conservative majority on the U.S. Supreme Court.
Fred and then Wesley.
All right, very quick. What do you think that President Trump is going to do with those who are in prison as a result of January 6th convictions?
Well, he said he's gonna pardon them. He said personally he was going to pardon January 6th defendants.
Oh, he's got to do that day one. Yeah. That's not even a question.
I think you'll see that day one. I do.
Wesley, go ahead.
Well, I was going to share that since we started the program, Wisconsin has made it official that it's for Trump.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
And what about the Senate race? Has the Senate race been made official with Hovde over Baldwin? Because then that would take the Republican majority in the Senate up to 53.
In Wisconsin, you're talking about.
I do not see that called yet.
Okay. I haven't seen it called yet
either. We're still waiting on Pennsylvania.
You know what? I'm not saying that Trump wouldn't have won anyway, but boy, the Democrats just made one terrible mistake choice after another. From Biden.
Walls will forever be forgotten now.
Tim Walz. He can go back to coaching.
Yeah.
Right?
Knucklehead.
Again, the Lord is merciful.
Amen.
Yes.
Amen. And that sincerely, and you do too, Abe.
I do too. I do mean it sincerely.
Okay. Now, if I were Trump, I'd come out this afternoon, and say, "Hey,
I've looked into.
I'm going to go. I'm going to go golf." But I just want you to know, last night after I got through speaking, I went back and started reading Project 2025.
That's it. Let's go.
They would go crazy.
And you know what? There's a lot of things. There's a lot of things in there I like.
There's a lot.
Like I told y'all a couple months ago, I didn't even know what was in it. But now I'm finding out.
Now that I've read it, it's beautiful. Project 25 is a beautiful project.
That's beautiful.
All right, we'll be back in 5 minutes. Stay with us.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
As a federal or state employee, you have the opportunity to support the American Family Association through the combined federal campaign by designating a monthly payroll deduction using 12037. You help AFA continue to fight for your family. So when you complete your CFC form, remember, AFA's number is 12037. And thank you for your help.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
For American Family News, I'm Chris Woodward. Vice President Kamala Harris will concede defeat to Donald Trump this evening. That's according to news outlet Reuters, citing Harris campaign sources. Trump was elected last night after a series of wins, including battleground states such as Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, that put Trump over the 270-vote threshold. The victory of President-elect Trump is already changing the world balance of power and currency. Here's Fox's Therese Crowley.
Iran's currency fell to an all-time low on news of the presidential election victory of Donald Trump. The rial traded as low as 703,000 to the dollar. In 2015, it was 32,000 to the dollar. And as Iran's prospects for waging war on Israel and through terror proxies get more expensive, students on the street in Tehran worry that President-elect Trump will reimpose the sanctions that starved the Islamic regime and crippled its advancing nuclear program. One student worries our economy and social situation will surely get worse, adding, "I feel the country is going to blow up." But Vice President-elect J.D. Vance tells a podcaster, "We don't want Iran to get a nuclear weapon, and smart diplomacy really matters."
Meanwhile, the head of the Democratic National Committee appears to be calling it quits. Fox's Matt Murphy has this story.
Democratic National Committee Chairman Jamie Harrison is expected to step down and not seek renomination when the party holds a leadership vote early next year. Sources say Harrison, who faced criticism for strongly supporting President Joe Biden's 2024 bid, had signaled plans to leave prior to Vice President Kamala Harris's defeat. He is set to hold an all-staff meeting today to address the outcomes and discuss a leadership vote likely scheduled before April. Harrison has not commented publicly.
In other news this hour, Hurricane Rafael is barreling toward Cuba and is forecast to make landfall in western Cuba as a major Category 3 hurricane. Forecasters warn it could bring life-threatening storm surges, winds, and flash floods. Thousands of people in the west of the island were evacuated as a prevention measure before Rafael was expected to slam into Cuba today after dumping rain on Jamaica and the Cayman Islands yesterday. Football is the vehicle, Christ is the destination. That's according to a Catholic high school's head football coach. Here's AFN's Bronson Woodruff.
Hugh Brown is the VP of American Life League. He's also the chairman of the board of St. Michael the Archangel Catholic High School in Fredericksburg, Virginia. And he's the head coach of the Warriors, the school's football team. He explained in an interview with AFN that his family founded the Catholic high school back in 2004, and it opened in 2006 with 12 kids in the basement of a doctor's office. It took about 10 years to get it off the ground.
And everywhere we turned, the answer was no, including the diocese.
He explained they wanted Christ in the center of their children's lives.
And we named it St. Michael, because there was war in heaven, and Michael and his angels, cast Satan and a third of all the stars from heaven out. And we thought, well, the culture in the 90s and early 2000s was not the greatest for young people to grow up in. And so that would be a great namesake and a good patron saint. And my gosh, how things have just continued to deteriorate. So the witness of Jesus Christ is needed more than ever for our young people.
In 2017, they founded this football program.
And I didn't coach it. It didn't go very well. Hired some good people, but some bad decisions were made. And during the season, had to fire a bunch of people and hire an interim coach. And it seemed like it probably had been a very bad idea to introduce football to a school that was 11 years old.
He explained that through a series of difficulties and tragedy, miraculous events, and his wife suggesting that he could be the coach, the school went on to win a national championship more than once. He said that in the end, the goal is for the students to learn the courage to be faithful Christians. I'm Bronson Woodruff.
In final news, a rare letter dating from 1784 could fetch up to $1 million when it goes up for auction later this month. The letter was signed by founding fathers. And that's all my time for now. Find more news on afn.net. It's not just what you hear on the radio. Visit afn.net for Associated Press material, videos, columns, even a political cartoon. It's all there on afn.net. Thank you for listening.
The Bachelor of Arts in Christian Ministry at Wesley Biblical Seminary is the perfect opportunity to prepare for God's calling on your life. It's easy to make excuses why you can't pursue what God has called you to do, but this program removes those barriers: flexible class options, an affordable cost, and highly trusted professors. WBS is the school for you, and now is the time to take a next step and prepare for God's calling on your life. Learn more at wbs.edu. That's wbs.edu.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildmon, president of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. And Steve Paisley Jordahl joins us now. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, everybody.
Tim, Ed, and Wesley in studio as well. Appreciate Abraham Hamilton III joining us last half hour. So, the big news is that President Donald Trump won re-election. Well, I say won re-election. He's going to be the next president. The Republicans are going to take the Senate and pretty, either 52, 53, or 54 Republicans. And so Trump will be able to get any judges he wants through without any problems. There'll be no drama about hearings or anything like that. No accusations like the Democrats pulled out against Judge Kavanaugh, from his high school years about some girl who said.
You don't think they can do that?
It ain't gonna work. All right, I would use my ain't sup today. I understand that before we get to
You've got two in.
I know. I don't want our English teachers calling me. So anyway, the big news is, and the Republicans are going to win the House of Representatives. So Mike Johnson will be the Speaker. It's just a matter of how much he has to work with there in the House. But if you're in the House of Representatives, it's of course a much larger body than the Senate, and they have committees, and they're very important committees, and you only have to be in charge by one vote to chair all the committees in the House of Representatives. Right. So the Republicans are going to be in a sweet spot.
But they're also, the House committees are apportioned by representation. So if the Republicans have a large majority in the House, then they have a larger majority on every committee as well.
Now, the House has not been officially called.
No,
so
that's true.
Need to make that point.
That's true. So what's your point, Steve?
My point? Okay. So we've been taking a lot of note. I remember I brought in yesterday or the day before that NBC was getting in trouble for not allowing equal time.
Saturday
Night Live. So I didn't want to get us in trouble. So I have invited the Kamala Harris campaign and some of her followers. We wanted to give them some equal time here as well. So there you go.
Oh, man.
Is that a real person, or is that just somebody?
No, that's a real person reacting.
That's called the sounds of San Francisco, ladies and gentlemen, right there last night.
Which we take great pleasure in.
Yeah, that's funny.
Listen, that strikes me as mental illness.
Listen, I could have gone
Really?
this whole half hour with examples like that. Yeah. They're everywhere.
All right, so has Harris called Trump yet?
Kamala Harris is scheduled to call Trump tonight at 6 o'clock. She's made an announcement. Well, she's scheduled to concede the race at 6 o'clock. She'll give a national speech, televised speech.
America waits.
Yeah, she is going to call Trump right before that and concede on the phone. Now, why did they wait this long? My thought is that all the people who write her scripts that tell her how to say the words are hungover from last night, so it's taken them that long before they can get the script.
Bada boom. Yeah, Steve has to have hard facts before he.
I know.
Before he reports things here.
I'm just thinking, but no, seriously, 6 o'clock tonight is a concession.
You know what? If I'm her, I'm calling him right now, and I'm saying, congratulations, you won. You don't have to say what Or can we get together for Christmas or something
Right.
like that? Just say congratulations, you won the race, and I concede, and wish you the best, or whatever.
Races are important. Races are important to America, Mr. President, Mr. Next.
Oh, you're mocking what she would say
I
to
gotta
him.
stop. I
Okay,
gotta
yeah.
stop that.
I would do that, and then I would go outside right now, wherever she is, what hotel she's in, and do a little thing where I say, I want to thank everybody for supporting me. Sorry we didn't do better. We will keep fighting for our causes, and I want to thank my team, and thanks everybody for being here. And that's all I have to say.
Yeah.
That's all I do. I don't know what she's going to make a speech. Some kind of formal speech.
This seems. I can't be sure of this, but I don't ever remember anything being this late after an election.
You mean this decided?
Yes. Usually it's the night of. Right. Usually it's the night of or the next morning.
2020, that took a while. But
when it's when he's already been declared the winner.
Yes.
I mean, it's not close. We're not waiting on recounts and stuff like that. Okay.
Because why string it out?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Why string? What's the point of that?
Right.
And who's going to watch her now? What's she going to say? I look forward to my new job on Saturday Night Live. Is that what she's going to say? Huh?
Well, like I said in the last segment, I don't know what she does. She's probably not hurting for money or anything, but she's done politically. She can't run.
Usually they go do shows on MSNBC.
Yeah, I was going to say she might be she's awful high profile to be
But she doesn't
like an MSNBC contributor or something like that.
Yeah, but y'all got to think of something else. I've said it, and y'all just don't listen. She's not good at interviews. She's not good in front
That's
of the
true.
TV.
Right. She can't go on CNN.
No,
that's true. No, you got
talk
a point. Yeah.
Off the cuff.
No, so
I'm telling you.
What is she going to do? She's going to write books. She's going to lecture and go on the college circuit.
None of that.
She doesn't.
Well, children's books maybe.
You're brutal today.
I'm telling you, she has a future on the Food Channel.
now that I agree with.
Yeah, and all you do is create a show called Salads with Kamala.
Yep.
And
word salads and other
she can
things.
make up every kind of salad. Just travel the world.
Yeah.
On interviewing famous people and chefs about their best salads. I think that would be a hit. All right, Steve.
Hey, reaction to the Trump victories coming in from around the world. The allies of the United States, the conservative allies, are congratulating President Trump. The more liberal socialist countries are expressing, a lot of them have congratulated Trump, but they're kind of expressing some concern, or at least they're going to wait and see. Benjamin Netanyahu sent Donald and Melania a message. This is on Twitter. He probably called him as well. But the message reads, "Dear Donald and Melania Trump, congratulations on history's greatest comeback. Your historic return to the White House offers a new beginning for America and a powerful recommitment to the great alliance between Israel and America. This is a huge victory. In true friendship, yours, Benjamin and Sarah Netanyahu."
Don't you think Netanyahu's breathing a sigh of relief?
Oh man,
as are the majority of Israeli citizens.
Yes.
This is a game changer as far as how that war is prosecuted. All of the both sides now are, hold back or don't go into Rafah or whatever.
If you're Iran, you now know. Of course, you've got 2.5 months. Whatever you're going to do, you need to do it. But you now know that the next president of the United States ain't going to play. See, I used ain't.
Yeah.
Joining
Ain't
he ain't going to play.
Yep.
And so your opportunity has been squandered if you were trying to eliminate Israel. You not only have to deal with Israel, but now you got to deal with the United States without reservation.
Yeah.
Iran.
What about Russia, Ukraine? Where's that go now?
Well, that's
5-minute solves.
Yeah.
Solved.
Well, there was one of the cabinet members for Putin says looking forward to the possibility of a reset with the United States.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
So end the war?
Who knows?
Donald Trump, remember, famously said that he's going to have this thing solved in a day with a couple phone calls. I don't think that's going to happen. But Donald Trump has been very proud of the fact that he kept America out of wars and was not involved in wars in his first term. So I have a feeling whatever it is, that America is going to kind of step back. They may still provide aid, but I have a feeling it's going to be a lot less public and a lot less.
Yeah, we'll see. That war does need to end because, well, I don't know if they'll ever be able to rebuild Ukraine. And Russia's, the both sides have it's been brutal as far as the lives lost, towns and cities destroyed.
Listen, if you're Vladimir Putin and you want an exit ramp, Trump's reelection gives you an opportunity for that, and you can save face. You can say we've been talking with the United States, and we need to bring this to a conclusion.
And I'll say, is the big? Well, I don't want to get too much into this Ukraine-Russia thing, but it is a big thing. If Trump could say, well, get Zelensky or whoever to agree that NATO, that Ukraine will not join NATO, is that a big deal?
That's a big deal to Russia, but I don't know what the off ramp will look like, but
I think you're going to have to give up some of Ukraine.
Oh, Ukraine will.
Yeah, Ukraine will have to give up some territory.
Yeah,
the Donbass, and then they've had
Crimea
for a while.
Anyway, I just didn't want to sidetrack us there, but I don't know. That is going to be a big issue when Trump gets in. Well, it's going to be a big issue in terms of the reason it's a big issue. Now, it doesn't affect any of us. We don't live anywhere near that place, Ukraine-Russia border, but it's the money we give.
Right.
And the support we give.
Yeah, I think President Trump will have to say, listen, we've got things to deal with here. We got our own infrastructure problems. A lot of Americans are suffering.
Tell Zelensky, so you better cut a deal with Putin.
Yeah.
Or else you're not going to have any money to fight anymore. And
Europe, he's going to say to Europe, you're going to have to fork over money to help rebuild Ukraine.
We are not totally removed that much. I mean, totally removed from what's going on there because, again, the NATO question, if they allow Ukraine to join NATO, there's a lot of people that say that the treaty thing that says that we all have to come to their defense if they're attacked.
It's Article 5.
Article 5 could be invoked. Now, the other thing I'll say is if Trump is able to negotiate within a reasonable time some kind of resolution to that war, that plus the Abraham Accords, if someone does not nominate him for a Nobel Peace Prize, and I mean legitimately, and they probably won't consider it, but I mean, if ever somebody, Barack Obama got one 3 days into office for nothing?
Hey, let's talk J.D. Vance, my friend.
Here's
it. You talk about a movie, a guy who, this is a remarkable. You couldn't hardly make this up, Ed.
Right.
The way he came from his background. I've still got the book at home. I'm meaning to read it. I haven't read it yet. Hillbilly
Elegy.
Yeah. Have you read it?
I've not.
Okay. So anyway,
I'm gonna as soon as you're done with it, pass it on.
I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you. But let me ask you this: talk about that for just a minute. He's
yeah.
Wow.
This is one of those things. Again, I don't want to overstate things and over spiritualize, but it's kind of like a Daniel thing, where you start off way down here, and all of a sudden you are pulled up into the upper echelons of government.
Could have never seen it coming.
Good grief. He writes a best-selling book. He becomes a U.S. senator, junior senator.
Barely wins.
And then out of all that obscurity, you become the vice presidential nominee for a kind of a long shot for a re-election, Trump-Vance.
40 years old.
40 years old, and now you are the heir apparent for MAGA.
You could see the emotion on his face last night during the speech. He was very close to tears.
It's an extraordinary story. The last 4 years, but especially the last 2 years, has been filled with extraordinary stories.
Oh man!
I mean, political miscalculations, 2 assassination attempts. Like you always say, if you were going to script this for Hollywood, people would be going, "Come on, that's not very realistic." And the J.D. Vance story is
one of
those.
Somebody from Trump's campaign has to get credit for this, because I know when it was announced, we already had our own quote green list, or we had our 2 or 3 that we thought they would be a good fit because they had a history that we were aware of.
Right.
And we thought these would be a good 2 or 3. but he wasn't even on the list for us
Right.
up until a couple weeks before it was being announced. So we saw him on the list. Yeah.
I had not heard him talk, but like 3 or 4 times. J.D. Vance, I'm talking about, before he was picked by Trump. I tell you who, well, I understand, and I've been very impressed. Hadn't you, Wesley?
Oh yeah, been very impressed. One other thing too, and there's a dozen or more things like this too. But just talking about how things unfolded. I mean, you got 1 week Harrison saying, you're to a person in the crowd that says, Jesus is Lord. You're at the wrong rally.
Yeah.
Next week, someone at where J.D. Vance is speaking at a Trump rally says Jesus is Lord. I'm paraphrasing here. He says, "Yeah, you know what? You're right."
Yeah.
I mean, like these things unfolding like this. The fact that played out, because you can't tell me that was planned.
No.
You know what I mean?
No.
On either side.
But
you know what I mean?
but the heart is revealed in those moments on both sides.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you something else too. This doesn't always work in terms of God. God always takes note of everything we do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That includes Christians, folks. God's paying attention. You don't hide anything from God. He knows what you're thinking, saying, and doing. Okay? But he's also paying attention to these folks at the top. And how you don't always see the consequences of that. But God was paying attention when Kamala Harris said, "This is the wrong rally."
Yeah.
All right? You want the one down the street.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So I'm not speaking for God here because that's not my place. But it sure seems like somebody was paying attention, and consequences were not pleasant for the side that said, not here.
And I mentioned that for a couple reasons. One, we're talking about how things unfold, but also, two, that's a direct reflection of J.D. Vance. There's one more thing that we learned along the way after his announcement.
Catholic, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean by the heart's revealed.
Right, exactly.
He didn't have to say, you got it, you're right.
He could have let her finish and got right back into his speech.
So here's another interesting discussion about Trump's cabinet. I want to play you a clip from last night and then let you guys go off on this cut 4.
Bobby, leave the oil to me. We have more liquid gold, oil and gas. We have more liquid gold than any country in the world, more than Saudi Arabia. We have more than Russia. Bobby, stay away from the liquid gold. Other than that, go have a good time, Bobby.
Robert Kennedy Jr.
Yeah, set it up a little bit because we knew what you were talking about, but at the beginning.
So he has been, he and Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is a Democrat, but has some positions that certainly did not align with today's Democrat Party. They joined kind of forces at the end. Robert Kennedy has some specific things that he is interested in, and Trump aligns with those things, not everything. So one of the things that Robert Kennedy wants to do is Robert Kennedy wants to clean up the food supply. He wants to take on health. So if he could be very heavily involved in health and human services, if not on the cabinet at that level, vaccines and all that kind of stuff. Robert Kennedy Jr. is also fairly strong on man-made climate change.
Right.
Which is why he was saying, stay away from the liquid gold. Trump was saying, I'll handle the climate change thing. We're going to drill, baby, drill.
Yes.
But you go ahead with the health thing. And I think that that was pre-negotiated. I think that did not surprise Robert Kennedy at all.
Before the clip that we played, President Trump said to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he said, you're going to get a chance to do what you want to do, make America healthy again. That's kind of been the kind of the theme with regards to RFK Jr., and that's another story. RFK was not going to win the presidency, in any world. But the decision he made to come out in support of Donald Trump is going to actually give RFK Jr. the opportunity to do what he's passionate about in terms of, like you said, cleaning up the the food supply, taking on big pharma, and also in terms of the vaccines and the studies. I also will say this. I would not be surprised. I remember listening to the podcast, Joe Rogan interviewing RFK Jr. I would not be surprised if we get some movement on the maybe the release of materials regarding the assassination of JFK.
JFK is his uncle. Politics is the art of compromise, and RFK plays it well.
What about, you got to have a White House press secretary. What about Joe Rogan?
I don't think so.
No,
he's making money hand over fist.
Not only that, but you would have to bleep out every other word.
Yeah, I'm kidding.
Oh, you were okay.
I'm kidding. Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan uses way too much profanity for.
But I do like Jenna Ellis sent around to us this morning. What's the guy's name that's on the CNN panel? The one conservative. What's his name?
Scott Jennings.
Scott Jennings.
I got a couple of clips if you want. If we have time to play from what he has to say.
I would like to hear that. But someone suggested maybe having him for a press secretary for Trump.
He's on CNN. I don't know his political affiliation, but CNN, there's a guy on CNN, Scott Jennings, and I don't know if it's him or another guy that does polling on one of the networks that they just kind of are honest about things.
Yeah.
And just let me play one thing he said. This is Scott Jennings. He's on CNN, and I want you to hear what he says about this election, what it means to the American people. Cut 15.
I'm interpreting the results tonight as the revenge of just the regular old working class American, the anonymous American who has been crushed, insulted, condescended to. They're not garbage. They're not Nazis. They're just regular people who get up and go to work every day and are trying to make a better life for their kids. And they feel like they have been told to just shut up when they have complained about the things that are hurting them in their own lives.
He said this on the panel election night on CNN last night.
Van Jones sitting right next to him.
Yep.
Yeah. So listen, this is I don't know I'm glad I don't have to figure this out, but the Democrats and the progressives, they got Humpty Dumpty is laying all over the place.
Right.
And I don't know, they're going to have to recruit some people to start picking up the pieces, right?
Yeah. They got to do an autopsy, is what someone said.
Yeah, that's hard to do. Trigati said that. I don't know. As Ed said earlier, you got the secular, progressive, liberal, far left wackos. I mean, they're dead set that their way is the only way, and and anything somebody does decide, hey, maybe we need to pull back and be more centrist or reasonable is going to be condemned.
Yes, and if you remember, too, Obama and back, they did a really good job of lying. So they would say they're for the border, and then they would get in and the policy would be different. But this go-around, they said, no, we're gonna open a surge.
Right.
So, my point is they've gone.
Well, walls are immoral to them.
Right, yeah.
If you ask them.
Yes, but it has always been, at least in my lifetime, but they're now saying it out loud, which is now the problem, which is why they're going to have to go back to lying better.
Well, I don't think Biden, had he been in his right mind, and he was the Joe Biden of even 15 years ago, would have done some of these really, really far left things.
That's right.
I just don't think he would have,
because
he would have known the political consequences would be what we're seeing today.
Exactly.
Well, he made. I'm not excusing Joe Biden, but so let me just use his expression. He made a deal with the devil in 2020.
That's true.
Okay, because Bernie Sanders was going to be a real challenge to Biden.
May have won. May have beat him.
Might have beat him, and I think what the Democratic Party establishment said is, listen, if everybody will get behind Joe Biden, drop out of the race, we will, behind the scenes, put Bernie Sanders' policies into place.
That's right. That's what happened.
That's what happened. And so
that's why Bernie Sanders bowed out.
Yes.
The Democrats have been addicted to very bad candidates for a while. Hillary Clinton was an awful candidate.
Right.
And Joe Biden didn't deserve to win 2020, regardless of what you think of the vote. He was a terrible candidate. Remember, he did his whole candidacy from the basement with geese.
Yeah, in the background. We made fun of that.
Right?
But
Well, and let me just give one example to make sense of what I was saying. So Obama, the example we've used a lot is Obama in his first term. There's a clip of him in a debate, and he was adamant about marriage being between one man and one woman, because that was a position he had to have in order to win. And then he got in office and he changed and he went to his personal conviction. They did a better job of doing that years ago. Now they got too many AOCs and Beto O'Rourke's in the camp that they're calling them out on. Like, no, if you really believe this about, like, Tim Walz, Tim.
We're out of time.
That makes sense, Tim Walz.
Yep. No, he doesn't make sense, but anyway, I get the idea.
No, yeah.
I'm saying you make sense.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know. Poor Tim Walz. I don't know. You're gonna have to find a.
What a knucklehead.
Is he still governor?
He's going to have to find, but
Yeah.
then he'll have to find maybe a football team to go coach somewhere. Huh? I think he's good at that, right?
Yeah.
All right.
So it says.
Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.
The words you are about to hear are taken from